If you like what you're seeing and hearing, please consider subscribing to the podcast. You can go to either Apple iTunes, the Google Play Store, Spotify, or Amazon Music in the podcast section. It'll hit Monday morning or Sunday afternoon, depending on when it posts. And the video will hit on YouTube and Spotify Monday. Spotify will hit Monday evening, and YouTube it'll hit Monday morning, 7 a.m., just like it does for the audio services. So please go to those places and consider subscribing or listening to the show. You can also write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com if you want to write me a letter. Let me know what you think of the show, things like that. Or you can also find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe. So go to those places and please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks. And with that, we'll get on to the episode. Hello, my name is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 231 of Gaming with Grief. I'm going to talk to Avin about the way ahead, what it has been for gaming, an amazing year for games, but a terrible year for game developers. I've talked about this before in the podcast, and in fact, I hate to say it, we recorded this a while ago, and the news just keeps on coming that this is not really out of date, but it has also been... this list that we're going to talk about has been added to. So again, this is episode 231. If you want to write to me, you can write to me at gwgpodfellows. I kind of said that in the intro already, but please like and subscribe the episode, share it with your friends, and we'll just get on to the interview. Like I said, we recorded this probably a week and a half back or so, and it's already out of date, but please, I like having Avin on. I think we have a good conversation. So, like, share the episode, stuff like that, and, here we are. Here you go. Hi. I know.
Hey.
I know what you're thinking. This is the Grief of Politics. It's not. It's actually Gaming with Grief. Avin, I have to bring you in every time there's a massive thing of the gaming industry, some big news. I had to share this stuff with you because we always talk about gaming and, just grief in general and how business affects people. And I shared this story with you that Epic Games laid off 830 people. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. Now, maybe it was last week. The story that I got, the story I got posted was from the 28th of September, is when this video was posted, or the article I have. So, just going over this, reading all this, we always talk about this as politics and people's lives, but this is work. And what did you think reading these articles that we're going to go over? Because I think there's a lot to say.
I hadn't realized how broad and widespread layoffs in gaming specifically were. I knew there was quite a bit of tech layoffs the beginning part of the year, and the outline, the first article you showed with me outlined that pretty extensively.
Oh yeah, from gamesindustry.biz. Yeah, they're pretty good.
The economy is not fantastic. I know everyone was calling for a recession, and officially speaking, no one's actually ever declared a recession. If you look at the historical definition of one, we were definitely in a recession at the beginning of 2023, even though no one wanted to use those words. And I think that was very politically motivated.
Right.
Politicians don't want to use the R word, as they would say in politics, because it looks bad to voters. But I think, I don't know that voters would have really given a damn at that point in time, because it didn't feel like a recession versus a lot of former recessions. Yes, there were layoffs. Yes, the economy hasn't been fantastic, but for what all of us were warned about, it wasn't that bad, unless, you work in gaming or you work in tech. The Amazon layoffs, the Microsoft layoffs, in the magnitude of thousands.
Yeah.
And the biggest round of layoffs in all of tech was
it Microsoft at the beginning of the year? Oh, well, that came in waves. GameIndustry.biz. This was written by Sophie McAvoy. It was published on October 9th, 2023, which is great because, we were planning this episode for a bit, and she just came out with this a few days ago. It says over 6,000 game industry jobs lost in 2023 so far. And, a lot of them go through. There's a lot of game companies I don't...
Oh, yeah, there's a ton that I've never even heard of. That was also interesting.
Yeah, Telltale, which I think is an interesting thing, which was number one on the list. The thing about Telltale was, I don't know if you know about Telltale Games, they do a lot of neo adventure games where you control your character going from point A to point B, kind of like the old point and click adventure games. You're investigating things, but the thing that made Telltale great was they got a lot of licenses. So they had a back in the day Back to the Future licensed game. They have a Game of Thrones licensed game. They have a Walking Dead licensed game. Stop me if this all sounds familiar. They have they do many Walking Dead season games. What's the new one? Guardians of the Galaxy. They've done that. And so what happened was years ago, I forget this is an old story, but years ago, Telltale basically went to their employees and said, we're out of money because they license all their games and they have to pay a license fee. So they let everybody go. And then they kind of reformed with the Telltale name and everything. And then 2 or 3 days ago, they announced that they laid off some of their new team. So they're licensing games again. They have The Wolf Among Us. I don't know if you know Fables, which is a famous comic book thing. They made The Wolf Among Us, and they're working on The Wolf Among Us 2. That nobody knows if that's happening. I thought that was interesting. Twitch, about a week ago, announced that they're laying people off. That's a big deal. Twitch does.
Yeah, that was also mentioned in here that Twitch had some layoffs, and if it wasn't it's the third one on the list of layoffs in a particular article.
Yeah. Crystal Dynamics, I think it's interesting. They do the Tomb Raider games back in the day. They've done the new Tomb Raider games. They did the new, all the Tomb Raider reboots. They did Marvel Avengers, which it was the best 6 out of 10 game nobody played. But the thing with Crystal Dynamics is they got bought out. Their company got carved up because they were working with Square Enix, or Square Enix owned them, who works on Final Fantasy. Square Enix carved them off in a fire sale and sold them to Embracer Group, which Embracer Group had a massive thing. I don't know if we ever talked about this. Embracer Group was basically just a VC fund for investment. And these investors, a few years ago, looked at several different things to make money and said, why don't we invest in game companies? Well, they gobbled up company after company after company. And it was like, what are they doing? They don't have an identity. They just have all these studios working for them. One was Crystal Dynamics. I'm trying to think of other ones that are escaping me. But what happened with them was since they have so many companies under so many umbrellas, they were looking for funding. And it was announced, I think 2 months ago, maybe the beginning of summer, the CFO had to go in front of board members, which they recorded. It's like a fireside chat, and he looks like somebody kicked him in the face because he basically had to go to that meeting and say their funding fell through. And it wasn't just like a little bit of funding or whatever. It was $2 billion just fell through. Yeah. So then they started laying people off. And Embracer Group's actually probably the number one thing on this list. I think they laid off several people. They've closed studios. Now they're kind of like, maybe we shouldn't have invested in all those companies, and maybe we should have an identity. I don't know. That's just me. Naughty Dog, who is a lauded game developer with Sony Entertainment, that was announced the other day. They've worked on The Last of Us. They worked on Uncharted, won tons of awards. Well, now they're trying to do a Last of Us kind of multiplayer experience called Factions, which is like a reboot of a game they did for Last of Us 1. They just announced the other day that they let about 25 contractors off that were working on that game. And they didn't lay them off. They basically said, hey, we're not renewing your contract. But what I thought was interesting was they specifically, I guess the people that reached out to media, they specifically told the contractors, we'll keep all this quiet. We don't want anybody to know we're going to lay you off, which I just got to say is probably not the best way to play that. Because the first thing, if you look at me and go, hey, I'm going to have to lay you off, just don't talk to any reporters. The first thing I'm going to do is email reporters and say like, hey, me and a bunch of people just got laid off. I was told not to say this, but screw these people. I don't have a job anymore after a certain date. So, yeah.
When you let people go and you say don't tell anyone, right? Like you're gonna be, it's normal and natural to be spiteful, so you're gonna do it. But it really comes down to the motivations, right? Like they might have asked them like don't go out and talk about we're getting laid off because they're worried that that's gonna dry up more funding and take more money out of the coffers, and they're gonna have to lay off actual direct staff, not just contractors who aren't having their contract renewed.
I would say
it really comes to, as we talk about over and over and over again when we have these conversations about these kind of things, right? Like it really comes down to like what's the heart behind the reason? Like why are they doing it? Are they asking these contractors to be quiet because like, hey, look, it sucks for you and we know it does.
Well, it's morale
we
too.
We don't want to have to lay off any more of the team. There's also the morale factor. There's investors start getting nervous and start pulling money. So it's the right thing for the. It might have been the right thing for the business, or it might have just been the business trying to save face.
Right.
But you're right. No, no. The moment you tell them don't talk to the media, they're gonna be like, "Hey, anonymous leak here."
And I've seen several game journalists, who actually break stories like, "Hey, I'm hearing something privately. If you'd like to reach out to me on Twitter or whatever, here's my personal email." And then I've heard like if you care about like journalism and gaming, you should really follow Jason Schreier. Not only has he written 2 books, From Pen to Pixels and Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, I think, kind of going over different games and what developers had to get games over the finish line. He said he does vet a lot of stuff, and some things just don't come back. It bears no fruit. Basically, he verifies it. He's like, "Oh, this is nothing," and so I get really mad when people, like say like he doesn't know what he's doing and stuff. I'm like, like this is how journalism works. Like you vet stuff. If it doesn't work out, it does. Like especially when he says like some of these stories he's done, he's talked to, double digits people to verify certain things. And he all says, like he disclaims most of his articles like, hey, these are these experiences in these departments. Everybody might not have had this experience, but this is the one department that had this experience, whatever. I would recommend people to go to this article because, again, it's on gameindustry.biz. It was published on October 9th, 2023. It was written by Sophie McAvoy, which I hope I'm saying that right. And she's a staff writer, and she just lays it out with bullet points. So you can go to all the articles and see, who was laid off, stuff like that. And so that leads me to the second article. This is the one I think that was like really surprising because you hear about, okay, Embracer didn't get its funding. That's going to be bad. You can kind of see down the road, like, hey, a lot of these companies aren't going to make it. There's Naughty Dog was surprising as well. But you do see this trend of like smaller game companies closing up. And I think with Epic, the thing to point out is one, they have an incredibly they own the Unreal Engine, from what I understand. So they rent that out to people to use for game development, and they license, and they publish Fortnite, which by any metric is probably one of the biggest games, around. So it prints money, but Tim Sweeney, the head of Epic, said that they were basically. I'm just going to read from this article. This is The Verge. Came out on, why is their dates weird? September 28th, 2023, 8:44 a.m. I'll just read from this article. In a statement from Tim Sweeney, Epic has confirmed the layoffs will impact around 830 employees. He wrote that the company intends to sell Bandcamp, which is like an independent, it says here, an independent music storefront, which I've actually used before. It's pretty great. You can hear a lot of good indie artists there. He wrote that the company intends to sell Bandcamp, an independent music storefront company Epic acquired just last year, to music license platform SongTrader. I don't know. And spin-off of Super Awesome, a kid tech company that specializes in creating safe online experiences for kids. He also explains that the layoffs are a result of the company spending way more money than we earn. Notably, Sweeney does not apologize to his employees for making the business decision that have resulted in the disruption of over 800 lives, saying only that his optimism that such spending would result in layoffs was unrealistic.
Optimistic that such spending would not result.
Yeah, so basically, I wonder if they have his full statement here, because that I've read it several times, and that was a weird way. I'm just going to read Tim Sweeney's actual statement he sent on September 28th to Epic employees. Hi, everyone. As we shared earlier, we're laying off around 16% of Epic employees. We're divesting Bandcamp and spinning off most of Super Awesome. For a while now, we've been spending way more money than we earn, investing in the next evolution of Epic and growing Fortnite as a metaverse-inspired ecosystem for creators. I had long been optimistic that we could power through this transition without layoffs, but in retrospect, I see that this is unrealistic. While Fortnite is starting to grow again, the growth is driven primarily by creator content with significant revenue sharing, and this is a lower margin business than we had when Fortnite Battle Royale took off and began funding our expansion. Success with the creator ecosystem is a great achievement, but it means our major structure changes Oh, but it means a major structural change to our economics. Epic folks around the world have been making ongoing efforts to reduce cost, including moving to net zero hiring and cutting operational spending on things like marketing, and events. I guess net hiring, I have to do an aside. Net hiring, I heard, is like if you let someone go, you can only hire one person. It's not like you try not to grow too much, you know? So, yeah, so the net zero hiring, I mean, I guess it makes sense. All right, back to the thing. But we still end up far short of our financial sustainability. We concluded that layoffs are the only way, and that doing them now on this scale will stabilize our finances. We're also making some divestitures. Bandcamp is joining Songtradr, a music marketplace company supporting artists. Super Awesome's advertising business will become an independent company under the Super Awesome brand, led by their current CEO, Kate O'Lonergan. Kids web services, the parent verification and consent management toolset will remain part of Epic. Saying goodbye to people who have helped build Epic is a terrible experience for all. The consultations that we adequately fund to support laid off employees. We're offering a severance package that includes 6 months base pay. And in the US, Canada, Brazil, 6 months of Epic paid healthcare. We're offering to accelerate people's stock options vesting schedule through the end of 2024 and are giving 2 additional years from today to exercise those options. In the US, we're also offering to vest any unearned profit sharing from their 401ks, and we'll provide benefits including career transition services and visa support where we can. For those still at Epic, you'll hear more from our senior leaders about the path forward for your team. Epic's prospects for the future are strong. We have amazing game experiences across multiple platforms. We built the best engine in the world, and we will be hosting Unreal Fest next week to bring the community together and spotlight the things that building with Unreal Engine and UEFN creators are making a living building from the Fortnite ecosystem, while time and third-party games now exceeding first-party. We're cutting costs without breaking development on our core business lines of business so we can continue to focus on ambitious plans. About 2/3 of layoffs were in teams outside of core development. Some of our products and initiatives will land on schedule, and some may not ship when planned because they're under-resourced for the time being. We're okay with this scheduled trade-off. It means holding on to our ability to achieve our goals, get to the side of profitability, and become a leading metaverse company. So I read that very quickly. But what do you think about his statement?
I mean, it's better than I expected it to be. It could have been way more heartless, right? He does kind of outline where they're at, what they're doing.
It could have been like peace out, yeah.
I think it's great that Epic is at least like accelerating options, allowing people to exercise those options for longer periods of time. They're giving some benefits and putting stuff out that they don't have to do.
Right.
And all of that, like, man, it sucks to get laid off, but at least I've got a cushion.
Something.
Of some kind.
Yeah, something. At least.
Yes. You and I talked about this separately, right? And we hadn't gone in depth into the statement when we talked about it separately. It sucks to lay people off. It really sucks that there's like not really any accountability for the business decisions that were bleeding cash, right? Like we know if they're just continuing to invest in Fortnite will continue to be a moneymaker for them, but not forever, right? Like World of Warcraft is actually doing better right now because they've kind of brought back some stuff people wanted, but it's not anywhere near the peak that it was at its biggest, right?
Right.
For Blizzard. And so you can keep getting money out of that, but you do have to expand your business. You do have to bring on new product lines into those things, and that's all a gamble. So it would be really great, as you and I had talked about separately, if part of this statement was a recognition of like, we made some gambles and we brought people on to support those and they didn't pay off. Me and my team, for whatever that is, like, we're sorry for this. I would be curious, and one of the other things you talked about, like, how come they're only laying off field level workers? How come they're not laying off any other people? But we don't. I haven't seen a mix of staff that's let go. Like, are they getting rid of whole teams? And that's the case. If that's the case, are they getting rid of the middle management and the management that goes along with, like, hey, we created this whole new team and, like, we're just getting rid of it? An example of that would be Bandcamp. Is the leadership tied to Bandcamp also leaving, or are they staying behind and getting bonuses? Like,
yeah. Well, that's the thing, for context, what a lot of people pointed out, I didn't know this till obviously I'm listening as it's breaking. A couple weeks ago, I was listening to devs or, game journalists and other people talk about it, pundits and stuff. And the idea is, Epic, this idea of the metaverse, he says in this letter, I think, especially with Facebook, or it's called Meta now, but this idea of what they think the metaverse isn't really what people think the metaverse is. Like, there's a lot of reporting about, especially Fortnite, like, we think the metaverse is like strapping a helmet onto our head, traditionally, like strapping a VR helmet on your head and getting lost in a world. But there was a lot of reporting around Fortnite itself that, like, some actual game journalists started hanging out with their kids, younger kids who were playing Fortnite. And, there's concerts in Fortnite where they make a Fortnite version of Ariana Grande, and you just watch the concert there. Everybody sits in the grass and watches it projected on a big screen. Or, kids are logged into Fortnite, but what these journalist parents found out was that their kids just talk while they're in Fortnite. They may be shooting somebody or buying a skin or running around, whatever, but they're not
right.
They're not doing, everybody thinks that they're just shooting each other all the time, but it's like they're just talking about their day. And a lot of people pointed out that is more the metaverse than traditionally strapping a helmet to your face and, checking out of society. And I think, we've seen with Facebook / Meta, and what Epic is saying is their version of the metaverse is this incredibly expensive technological thing, or maybe they spent too much money on, I don't know, but it just seems like that's a weird bet. And like we talked about offline, it's one thing if the employees are like, hey, I think this metaverse thing is worth looking into. I don't think they did. I think this is from the management saying, hey, Tim Sweeney really thinks,
Where are you getting that from? Like, are there sources that are saying that, like, hey, we told them this was a bad idea? Are there sources that are saying?
Yeah, I mean, I have heard some.
They don't understand the fundamentals of what the metaverse actually is. Like, they're trying to make it a VR environment when really the metaverse is just connecting. Like, where are you getting that?
Well, I think some of it right now is anecdotal, but it will take people like Jason Schreier to, like, weed through the whatever. I did hear some anecdotal stuff today that, like, whatever. It's
just dangerous to pull in our own interpretation of it without knowing what the reality is.
Well, also, I mean, this off to the side, that's one way
they're dangerous. It's just, it paints a bad light where maybe a bad light isn't due.
Right. Well, the other way that they're spending money, and they've even brought this up, and I guess journalists have brought it up to them, is their Apple lawsuit. They're spending a lot of money against Apple because...
Oh, Lord, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's on record, and journalists have been like, why are you doing this? Like, this seems like, what are you going to get from this? And they're like, well, we're trying to reduce our legal costs. It's like, but you're still taking them to court, and you lost.
And you lost.
Yeah, so, like, you're doing it again. And then there was one other thing that, like, there's basically three arms of the... Oh, well, I think it was, a lot of people...
narcissism of corporations.
Yeah, that's...
I didn't do anything wrong. You did something wrong.
Yeah. No, I think, too, though, the thing about... the content creator for Fortnite. Everybody likes games where you get to, like, make your own fun, right? And I think with them unlocking the content creator tools instead of people buying skins and stuff, and they set their profit share, which was totally great. It was like 20 to 80 or whatever it was, 12 to 88, whatever their share was. Well, now that people are creating content, other people are downloading that map, more money is going out than is coming in through skins and stuff like that, and events. And
but again, even here, he brought up, he was like, yeah, it sucks, it's less revenue, but, like, we've done this great thing for the creators. I will say, here's my interpretation of this from other conversations you and I have had, now that I've heard kind of the whole statement. Tim Sweeney's a way better guy than Bobby Kotick.
Oh yeah, I got a story for that later. Well, I mean, anecdote. Well, I mean, I don't know, but
not saying he's perfect, not saying he's infallible, right? Like, there could be all kinds of other problems, but like, at least here he's trying to be like, yeah, like, these are the realities and the headwinds we're facing. There could be some more openness, transparency.
Yeah.
Right. There could be a little bit more accountability.
I have two things. So the one story I did want to bring up is this just hit like a couple days ago, where I heard it like bubbling up, and then it actually got released as a story today. It's by Games Hub. A lot of people reported on this, but developers at CD Projekt Red and Avalanche Studios that do Just Cause actually unionized. And it says right here, and I heard this statement in several other outlets.
In Sweden, which apparently has a really weird
Yeah,
unionization.
you basically join the union, and the company doesn't, like, you don't vote. You just vote to join the union. You don't vote to unionize because there's already a union there.
Hmm.
But apparently, workers at CD Projekt. Oh, by the way, this is who wrote this? Leah J. Williams. It came out on the 9th of October, 2023. You know, Europeans in their calendar thing. Anyway, we're the dumb ones. Why do we do the day? Anyway, it says workers at CD Projekt Red are also unionizing, forming the Polish Game Dev Workers Union as a subgroup of the National OZZ. I cannot pronounce that. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the Polish Working Union. Workers are calling for other Polish game developers to join their union in an effort to achieve better working conditions for everyone, particularly as global layoffs continue to impact video game workers. And it said, quote, "We started talking about unionizing after the 2023 wave of layoffs. In July 2023, CD Projekt Red management announced it was laying off around 9% of its workforce due to economic stressors and staff." Now, to give you, I'm going to do this on the fly, CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk sales. CD Projekt Red, who just released Cyberpunk 2077 a year ago, and now just came out with an expansion called Phantom Liberty. They released all their sales data for just, well, most of their games. So I don't know if you know about whatever. It was a bad launch for Cyberpunk 2077, but through updates and stuff, they made it slightly better and better and better. And now they came out with the Phantom Liberty. They're calling it 2.0 along with the expansion. They basically rewrote the whole base. Well, not rewrote, but they changed big chunks of the base game. And it says right here, it's been steadily improving. They had so Cyberpunk 2077 has sold 25 million copies.
Not bad.
So 3 million more copies of Phantom Liberty. And I'm trying to see. Oh man, they just have this thing here. Yeah, but there was a big breakdown between it basically is making a truckload of money, and oh, here we go right here. Maybe they actually sales down here. Oh yeah, so it says, yep, launched. Okay, right here. That's Steam players, 100,000. Sorry. Oh yeah, 100 million copies sold between the Witcher series and Cyberpunk 2077. So that is a lot of
In
money.
what time span?
Well, lifetime Witcher 3, it says right here, includes Witcher 3, Witcher 2, the Assassins of Kings, Witcher 3, the Wild Hunt, and Cyberpunk 2077. I think that's lifetime sales of Witcher, and obviously Cyberpunk's only been out a year and a half or a year-ish. I think it came out in November. But anyway, so it's like the total lifetime sales, so that's a lot. So what a lot of people are saying is that you're seeing they're announcing they're having record profits and stuff like that, but like they started to lay people off, and they even had employees in on the call when they were making talking about what to do, and a lot of the employees were like, "Hey man, why did we release a game like this? We all give you spreadsheets, we give you reports. This game wasn't ready to go, but like you decided to release it, and we don't understand why, and now it's making us look bad, and now we have to work longer to fix the game, and so and it was reported, I can't find it, but I think they spent about $80 million to fix the game. So like after their stock traded down, they got sued by shareholders because shareholders basically said, you lied to us, you said the game was in much better shape. Now all these stories are coming out when the game launched a year ago, and now our stock's trading down, so we're losing money. So they sued CD Projekt Red. From that moment, it took them $80 million till today to fix the game, which is an extraordinary amount of money. But my God.
How much money did they spend to develop it in the first place?
Yeah, that I don't know. But yeah, it's just, I mean, I could see why these employees are like, no, we want to unionize because like all this stuff's happening. And like, who's to say they're not going to come by and go, well, we're going to have to lay more people off. It's like, why? Like we saved the game. We did all this and
I look at the gaming industry and the way that it works, right? And so many of the larger game dev companies are doing like um, tentpole. Am I get that right? Is it tentpole?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
AAA, tentpole, yeah, Megan. Yeah.
right, like massive games
Mm-hmm.
that they're
Mm-hmm.
building their whole company around, right? And they're hiring all these developers and writers and designers and directors and script writers and like all this stuff. They spend all this money to put into these projects to sell these games. And then the game is made and like they've got to move on to the next thing. And if they don't have the next thing, then like you're not going to carry that staff
Yeah.
because that's just
Well,
dead weight.
that's a
I
thing.
think it's one of the unfortunate like realities of being in the gaming industry is it's like super busy. They work the living tar out of the devs to get it done, and then like, hey, sorry, so too bad, we're done. We don't have another game for you. Goodbye. And I'm not saying it's a good thing. It's something I don't like about the industry. I just don't know if unionization helps them in a traditional sense because, right? Like we sold the game. We don't have work for you, right? Like what happens to you if you don't have work to do?
Yeah, I think what you hear about a lot of teams, and I mean, again, this is anecdotal, but a lot of teams are saying, or like developers that have YouTube accounts or whatever, saying, "Hey, we're at like a 6-year cycle to like make a game, so
Yeah.
like from start to finish, and then on top of it, like it creates this unsustainable thing where you're like, man, I love God of War Ragnarok, but doesn't it have to sell like 6 years with like, I think there's, I mean, I think if I looked up, hang on, if I look up Sony Santa Monica that made God of War, they have like a careers page, but I think they talk about how many people are in their studio. I'm going to go to their
And I've
actual,
seen them out.
yeah, and I'm seeing them out. But I'm saying like, I don't know the math on who we are. Let's say, I wonder if it's got a count here. We are over 250 world-class developers. So 250 developers in Santa Monica, because that's where they are, working for 5 years on a game. How many? I mean, I'm bad at math. That's a lot of titles of that game you have to sell for just them to break even. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, and you have to consider that they probably have a range of salaries from like, secretaries and janitors that are making 50, 60 or less
yeah,
thousand a year. And I say it's probably higher, right, for parts people living elsewhere in the world and in the country. I think that's high, but right, remember Santa Monica, California, like they're even the lower end workers are probably making more money. All the way up to your lead designers and directors and those people that are making
more. Yeah,
300, 400, $500,000 a year. And in the gaming space and the dev space, right? Like that's probably a pretty sizable portion of your staff is probably 200,000 plus.
yeah, yeah. That's
So
it's
you got 250 employees that are or developers that are doing that. I don't know if that counts all of their staff, right? That it didn't say employees, it said developers. So you're right. If it's a 5 or 6 year cycle to develop a game, that's obscenely expensive. You have to sell a massive amount of copies, and if you don't, like you're done, right? It's a kiss of death. God, what was that company that got super famous for all their small little cell phone games? I can't think of the name
not
of them
King.
right now, but
Wasn't King, was it? Oh, was it the people who
No.
did Angry Bird?
yeah,
Yeah,
like in my opinion, those are the game studios that are more likely to be stable. You're not going to develop these flagship games that get massive amounts of press,
right.
but you're probably going to have a job
Yeah,
for
probably.
a super long time.
Yeah.
Flip side of it, right? Like 6 years on a contract or with an employer is pretty dang good anyway. Most people, statistically speaking, don't stay with an individual employer for 6 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, I don't want to denigrate, diminish, belittle. Like it sucks to get laid off, especially when you're making money like that and you live in some place so expensive, like Santa Monica, California. I don't want to detract. I don't know what a union does in this industry. It
Well,
helps
I
for
can
better
tell you.
benefits.
I
Maybe
can.
it helps for better
I can tell you.
better time management because I mean one of the horrors we've talked about in other conversations we've had is the over. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead. No, you're fine.
verbalizing it through my head, trying to think through.
I'm trying to pull up like 3 articles right now. Go ahead. Like, it's fine.
Right, like you've looked at this more than I have, and we discussed it, right? Like it probably helps with getting better benefits. Most likely, it's going to give them better severance packages because the company's going to have to plan for that more effectively. But there was one other thing I was trying to think of that probably comes out of it.
There's probably a better system.
Work-life balance.
Yeah, there's probably because you have to pay for that basically, right? Like the.
Well, gosh, I mean, how many times have we talked, you and I personally, about the stories of these developers being told to work like 7 days a week, 12 hours a day to get a game out, and I can almost guarantee that Cyberpunk, before it was released, still not as a polished product, was probably like that.
Oh, there was
work.
There was reports that came out of the studio that said there was a point past crunch, which is their nice way of saying overtime. Crunch is like the nice way of or a different way to say overtime. They called it a death march because they were like working so much to get it done.
Yeah.
So BioWare had a problem in Canada. They let some people go, but those people were unionized, and what they were allowed to do is go back and sue BioWare because BioWare, they claim BioWare wasn't giving them a proper severance. And, like you just said, and they also said that one of the things that they're not allowed to do because they're under NDA and the game is still in development, they're coming out with a new Dragon Age game. And because of NDAs, they can't tell people they worked on the game. And so if they go to another studio, even though they worked on Red Wolf for like, I don't even know how long that game's in development because the other one came out in 2013. So I don't know how long they've been actively developing the game. They can't go to a studio and go, hey, I got experience working on Dread Wolf. It's a new game coming out. They can't say that. And many developers don't credit developers who have been let go. Some of them don't. So if you get let go in the middle of a project, they take your name off the game. And a lot of people are like, let's just say, it was somebody just, leaving the company. They didn't get fired, but you worked like 5 years on a 7-year game and they just take your name off the credits. You're like, I didn't get to the finish line for whatever reason with the company, but like now I have nothing to show for it. I can't go to a dev. I don't like, I'm sure in the dev there's like a for NDA where they're like, yeah, I believe you worked on Dreadwolf, but to be able to show people in the credits like, yeah, I did the art for this, whatever, my name's in the credits. Without that, I could see that's where you would step in and go, no, you got to start crediting these people. Even if you put like a date, like when they left, or whatever, like at least their name's in the credits. So,
or some form of like, not necessarily letter of recommendation, but like certification of work.
Yeah. Right? Of like, hey, you did do this. So
so worked on a yet to be unnamed game. Here's your certification code. When the game releases, you can pass this and verify.
Something
that would allow that to happen, right? Because, I mean, if a game is under NDA still, if I'm working on a game that's under NDA and I go to a new developer, like, hey, I've got experience working on blah, 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 that company's not going to know what that game is unless you start disclosing what the game is.
Yeah.
And they're still not going to know if you're lying or telling the truth. So some form of certification process, like, hey, so-and-so worked on giant project for us.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like a factual statement, not good or positive, right. Not endorsement or otherwise.
So in
be able to let them claim their work and experience.
Right. In my opinion, that's something a union could do, is say, hey, I need these protections. So several episodes ago, I just want to finish this out by saying several episodes ago, you and I talked about Bobby Kotick and his whole comments, and we read the article. This came out today, Avin. It couldn't have happened to a nicer pair of podcasters. James Corden, yes, that James Corden that hosts a late night show, appeared at an Activision all hands meeting, and I want to see how they originally. Yes, the former the Late Show host, known for terrorizing Los Angeles drivers with musical stunts, yeah, he does the carpool karaoke, appeared alongside Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick to bring employees up to speed on the state of the company. Why is this important, you ask, Avin? Well, I'm glad you asked, because Microsoft cleared a bunch of hurdles, and they want to close a deal between Activision and Blizzard by Friday. So they want to close the deal, sign the ink by Friday, which, if you ask me, Friday the 13th is probably not the best day to sign a deal.
Oh, no.
It's like, I think
I didn't realize it's Friday the 13th.
I would have been like, could we do it on it
for me?
Could we do it on Monday, like the 17th? Like, I don't know. It just seems. But so I heard about all this, and apparently, it was like an all hands, and like James Corden hosted it, and Bobby Kotick just talked about, his legacy, which basically to me says he knows he's getting that check and he's on his way out. And if I was an employee with everything that's gone on with Bobby Kotick, as long as they had food and it was catered, I would have just let him talk and been like, thanks, man. He wants to bring back Guitar Hero. He's making all these things like, what we're going to do? It's like, get out, I don't care, It's like, if you know somebody, and whatever, James Corden, I just find that hilarious. I want to see. Is this a? It says right here. I guess this is a quote from Kotick. I think a lot of Activision's motivations is that we have these enormous communities of players of 400 million people in 190 countries around the world who are engaged every single day. Yeah, Kotick said. I think people at Activision feel this incredible sense of responsibility to deliver for their players, and so I think that recognition and that appreciation, that the focus will be rewarded in the joys of hundreds of millions of people. Kotick and Corden also discussed the future of gaming. I did not know Corden was a big gamer. Apparently he is, including machine learning, AI, virtual reality, and even Elon Musk's Neuralink. I don't think I'm ready for a chip in my head to game. I'm fine with a controller.
I've listened to a podcast with an interview with Neuralink's CEO, director, who is brain surgeon, scientist, guy's obscenely intelligent, and he repeatedly in that podcast was like, again, just to reaffirm, over and over and over, we are this close, to being able to have a chip work in the brain to help people regain a little bit of motor function. Basically, help them translate the signal that's not getting to their other parts of their body from their brain. We are nowhere near
I just want to
interface that people think.
I just want to squash your hopes now. We're not gonna wake up tomorrow with chips. I just think this is interesting. This came out today, and it did signal to me that someone's emailed Kotick hey, clean your office, or we're closing the deal, vacuum under the chair, grab the picture, I don't, whatever.
Oh, he's getting such a crazy payoff,
no.
Why would he stay? He's not going to have a voice the way he's had a voice. He's not going to be in charge. He's not going to have control. He's going to answer to someone, but finally is going to have enough authority over him to be like, you did what?
Right.
Yeah, no, go. Pack it back, see it.
Yeah, and then today, or maybe it was yesterday, big news. Have you ever heard of Unity? It's a game engine a lot of developers use to
I've heard of it, yes.
So, Unity, I don't know, time is a flat circle. Maybe a week or two ago, John Riccitiello is the CEO of Unity, and he announced that they were going to start charging people, they were going to start charging developers when people downloaded their game. And developers were like, whoa, man, that's a lot of money. And
we paid you a license. Why? What?
And
I'm assuming they paid a license to use it.
And he said that we're going to do it retroactively. So, it isn't from now on. It's we're going back to January of this year. And so the community freaked out, back and forth, yada, yada, yada. You and I were talking about, what happens to these C-level executives. It was just announced today. He's only been the CEO for 9 years, but he is out, effective the end of the week. They're going to bring in...
Only been the CEO for 9 years?
Right, something like that. Well, most CEOs stay for...
That is not an only figure for a CEO. Typically, they do not stay with companies very long unless they're a founding CEO, Elon Musk or Bill Gates.
We always wonder, what's gonna happen to these people they're making... Well, he's out, and they're bringing in... And some people online have pointed out...
They're on the board for that one.
Yeah, well, they also pointed out that when he started being the CEO of Unity, I think the shares were around $60 for a share of Unity. Since it's publicly traded, now it's down to $30. So as a board, you're at a board, you're like, no. And
when did he come in?
I think it was. I heard he's been on the board for 9 years. Let me look here.
He's been CEO for 9
years. Yeah. Sorry, John, Rick.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
So if he's been there for 9 years, and it was 90 when he started. Like, there's a lot of market ups and downs. It'd be one thing if he'd been on for 2 years and started 90. Now it's 30.
Oh man!
But for 9, has it been a steady decline? Did it go down and up, down? Like,
yeah, I'm trying to find an actual story because I just clicked on a Reddit thread and there was a lot of fake fucking God on the Reddit
come on, it's Reddit. Reddit's not a trustworthy news source all the time.
Oh, here we go.
Frequently.
The Verge is very good. The board will initiate a comprehensive search process with the assistance of leading executives. James Whitehurst will step in as interim, and he'll continue to advise. Let's see. Some developers threaten to never use Unity again after their decision for the whatever.
I mean, this sounds like the D&D Wizards.
Oh yeah, the OSL thing. Well, I think the thing that stuck people so bad is not only is that a terrible deal, because what happens if you, like, it was so unclear. It was like, wait, so like I've had games in my library where I'm playing a game and I got to play a new game, so I delete the game, but it's still in my library, so I can re-download it. Do you get recharged when I re-download the game? Like, how does that all work? And then I think it was a retroactive thing that the gamer, the developers freaked out. And I saw, like, 2 days after it was released, somebody's like, hey, I released this new game in Unity. It was like it was just a Twitter image that you clicked on. And it said, hey, I just made this new demo in Unity, or this is my new game in Unity. Let me know what you guys think. And you click on it, and it, like, all these pixels explode, and it just says Bankruptcy XL. And it was like this pixel, like, I just couldn't stop laughing. I was like, oh my God. Well, I mean, there is actual, if you see that, like, your value in your stock is going down by half, I guess, and then, you literally,
more.
Yeah. Unity CEO, Tom Warren, who does a lot of reporting, he says Unity CEO John Riccitiello was EA CEO when FIFA 09 launched with loot boxes. Last year, he said devs making games without monetization in minds are quote-unquote fucking idiots. That was a quote he did say. In an EA stockholder meeting, he entertained the idea of charging $1 to reload an ammo clip in Battlefield. That is unfreaking hinged. Unity will now regroup. Riccitiello is almost certainly responsible for some of Unity's growth, too. He ran the company for 9 years, nearly half its existence. A lot of the games are built on the engine. So yeah, anyway, he's actually getting let go. So
good on the board for making the right decision. Yeah, so I mean, on the idea of like anyone who's not building monetization in the games is a fucking idiot. His quote.
Yeah, that's his quote.
By the way, John, look at Larian.
Yeah, a lot of people are pointing to Larian, and the CEO of Larian. I don't know. I'll send you a clip of him just talking. He's a big D&D guy. I think I told you this, but he got interviewed in a suit of armor. And Larian, he has a throne. It's like their press office at Larian, so they bring the press in to demo the game. He's got a throne, but he owns the company with his wife. So I'd be like, yeah, I want the throne right there. Like, he's paying. I guess it's a pretty big deal. I'll send you an interview, but he's always in a good mood. He's like everybody's like, oh, speaking of Baldur's Gate 3, like you brought to me on the phone, you said, I can't get any more levels. I can't get spells. And he said, hey, as the power creep went up and the levels went up, the spells get more powerful, and it's hard to balance the game once you get, like very powerful spells. So we had to cap it somewhere. But they said there'll be more in the future.
As someone who has beaten Baldur's Gate 3 and gotten into the final fight, at level 12, the final fight was still challenging and difficult, but yeah, you're capable of some pretty big nukes.
Yeah, you're like, well, of course. No, yeah. I mean, all this to say is I think there is a big sea change, and I know a lot of developers now, speaking of this Unity story, a lot of developers, when the Unity thing broke, they were like, hey, I'm not going to use Unity. And nobody's really walked their statements back because they want to see what Unity's going to do. So Unity has a lot of work to do with their new CEO to like go to these developers and say, hey, we're really sorry. We totally dropped the ball. How can we make it worth it? And the developers, because I think it's a thing we talked about with the D&D episode with the license. How do you, once they've already made this put their foot forward and said this is their intention, how do you know they're going to take their step back? Like, you've already done the. How do I know you're not just going to reenact this again?
They made one big movement by firing the guy at the head.
Yeah. They could go.
My guess is the board saw the negative press and the writing on the wall. Hopefully, they were kind of paying attention what happened with Wizards and the OSL, because
yeah, they lost a lot of it.
That took way longer to unwind than this one did. It sounds like. So whoever the new guy coming in is probably going to come and be like, whoa. I mean, in January of this year, my company hired a new CEO, and she came in and was like, oh yeah, I really want to get everyone back in the office, and never officially announced it yet, but had talked to enough people that it got around the whole company. So the very first public meeting that she did, they opened the mic and people started talking about it. And the next open meeting that she did, she's like, I heard you. We are not making you come back.
Yeah. I think
we'll be some kind of mix and allowing people to come in and do events and that kind of stuff. In fact, we just had a big, huge event in Seattle. We flew in people from all over the country that are remote workers, paid for their hotel, paid for everything to get everyone together. But executives need to listen to their people, and in the modern era, things get around super, super fast, and people react really, really bad. Mean, your staff reacts bad, and your customers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the ability to work from home, but I do. I mean, you do.
We're going to retroactively charge you all the way back to the beginning of the year for something that we never told you we were going to charge you for in the first place. You've spent that money, especially if you're an indie developer. What the hell?
Yeah, that's what they were like. Man, what are you talking? It was crazy. But there is changes happening. I think I definitely want to see what's going to happen at Epic. If there's going to be some thing of what did we do? And especially if they let Riccatello go, I wonder if I'd have to look at Epic's stock price, but if the board could be like, hey, man, they can let their CEO go, and I don't know. We'll see what happens.
What happened at Unity is very different than what happened at Epic.
Yeah.
Just to be very, very clear, Unity nuked their customer base, the devs.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, empty your wallets and give all your money to us. We're going to extort you because you need us.
Yeah.
They don't, Unity. They go elsewhere. You don't own them.
Yeah, it really did. It did feel like a shakedown a little bit, when all that stuff happened.
Yeah, right? Did I sign a contract with the mob?
I know, yeah.
What Epic did was, they made bad business decisions, and unfortunately people got laid off of those bad businesses. And the hope is that the people that made those bad decisions are held accountable. Yeah. Now, maybe Tim Sweeney accepts accountability for that at some point in time and resigns or is asked to leave or is let go. Hey, you made these bad decisions and there's repercussions for it. But my guess is probably not. I think the board and investors are probably going to look at, they recognized they were spending too much money, they weren't turning profit, and they laid people off. And in the corporate world, that's usually rewarded.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Again, we'll probably have to have one more episode when the deal with Activision Blizzard actually closes, because I want to see how long it takes for.
I'm not going to be available to record this on Friday, Joe.
No, it's not gonna. I want to do it when when he leaves and what happens, because there's going to be a lot written about him if he leaves. Right? There's going to be a lot of retrospectives and all that. And so it's going to be a while. So we'll do that much in the future. I will say this as a gift to you, Avin. I did check our other podcast, Agree for Politics, which I recommend people go check out. Comes out once a month on the 20th of the month. We're actually all green in the Apple iTunes section for engagement. So it's not much, but we got a 12 or 13% bump in engagement just on Apple iTunes. So it's not red and green and whatever. It's all green. So we're getting.
I don't know what the analytics are there, so I'll have to take your word for it, man.
Well,
I'll take in the green.
Yeah, it's all green. I've looked at my other stuff times, and it's red and green for engagement and listeners and whatever, and we're all green. So it's doing better. So before we leave, is there anything else you want to plug, Avin? I plugged our podcast we do together. Once a month we come out. We complain about politics.
Like Joe brought up, we got the Grief of Politics. Joe's podcast you're listening to right now or watching right now. Gaming with Grief. he does all the time, so just gonna plug that for Joe. I also have a real estate referral business. I do a little bit of real estate transactions for friends and family, but mostly my goal is to help people have successful real estate transactions by working with the genuine, caring, and professional agents that are working in real estate in their area. I think we all get a very cynical viewpoint of agents because there's so many of them out there that are
We do. Yeah.
What is the oh no, I can't remember the name of the author, but I was listening to an interview once where a pretty well recognized and respected author referred to real estate agents. Most real estate agents are hacks.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of like, oh man, oh.
Are we?
But I know there are many good ones. At Your Agent Guide, you can go to my YouTube, you can go to my webpage. Like my whole purpose, me personally, I don't have a staff or a team, it is me. The whole purpose of Your Agent Guide is to just help people find good, professional, talented agents. I have a YouTube channel. I haven't done a video in about a year, but a lot of that content is still currently relevant on how to hire an agent, what you should look for.
A lot of market stuff.
Current market statistics are going to be expired, but the rest of the stuff is useful.
Yeah, check it out. Well, thanks for joining me, Avin. Again, I'll probably have to have you on when the whole... I know a lot of just pundits in the gaming space are like, can we stop talking about Activision Blizzard? We want Microsoft to buy them. It's been a year and a... Finish it. Finish the deal. We're sick of reading stories. I, too, it's like, is it going to happen? I don't know if it's going to happen. I just sick of hearing...
They haven't given up.
Yeah.
When I worked for Sprint... and the second time, 2015, there was all this talk. Masayoshi Son of SoftBank in Japan had bought a massive percentage of it. We had Marcelo Clar as our CEO, and there was this whole thing about the Sprint and T-Mobile were going to merge. Masayoshi Son was going to buy Sprint too, and like bring the two companies together.
Right.
And that was like the big whole thing. Regulators got in the way. Son kind of walked away. He was like, well, if I can't have my thing, then I don't want to be here. And then eventually it ended up regulators shifted, got a new president, T-Mobile came in and got Sprint and was kind of swallowed them up. But it went on, like, they just gave up. Like, they didn't keep pushing through. They didn't keep trying when it happened. And like Activision and Microsoft, like every time they hit a barrier, they're like, whoa, okay, so so how do we make this work? Like, okay, regulator, like, what do you want? What can we do?
So the weirdest thing of the deal that I heard was, to get everything to clear, was the people that were putting the latest roadblock were from Britain, the UK regulatory thing. And what happened was they had a problem with Microsoft controlling cloud gaming with their cloud services. They said, you've cornered the market on cloud gaming. That's a monopoly. We don't like that. So you know what Microsoft did? They just looked at Ubisoft. Yes, that Ubisoft that does Assassin's Creed and whatever. And they sold the cloud rights to them. They said, fine, Ubisoft has all of our cloud rights now. They're a European company. Now can we buy Activision? And the CMA said, sure. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Like, didn't Ubisoft also do Division?
Yes, they did. Yes. So it's just weird. It's weird. And I know I was listening to a podcast and the host just got stuck on this. He's like, why Ubisoft? And he yelled it for like 5 minutes. And they had a live chat and people were writing it. He goes, that doesn't answer my question. Why? Like, why them? I have no idea. I think it's because maybe they're
European, and so they can be like, oh no, like we'll give the business to a European company and bring tax base into Europe.
This is such a crazy thing, but like, yes, it's Microsoft's own cloud service, and Ubisoft now owns it. Do you think when Microsoft makes a call to work something out, like, hey, we got this thing coming to cloud, and they call somebody at Ubisoft, do you think they let the phone ring one extra time, even though it's Microsoft's thing, but now they own it? Do you think they go, oh, Phil Spencer, Microsoft's calling, let it ring 3 times? Like, they just let it ring one more time, and then they pick up and go, what do you need, Phil? Like, it's just the one time where they'd be like...
The exact opposite is what ends up happening.
Yeah, they probably
Microsoft was like, we're giving you a gigantic paycheck.
Yeah, so please answer this.
Here is a pipeline of cash.
Oh, yeah.
Our expectation is that when the phone rings, it's half a ring.
Yeah, and then also one of the things that came out in this whole thing was, unfortunately, somebody at Microsoft attached some documents that were redacted or not redacted well to some PDFs they submitted to the court. So a lot of Microsoft's like internal documents kind of got leaked. And one of the things I thought was interesting about the leak, a lot of people were talking, it was a big news because it was like hundreds of documents. Phil Spencer said in an email to his management team, he said, listen, we got a problem. We have a lot of games internally that are delayed. We have a window of delay, and like, what are we going to do? So I want my management team to come up with a spreadsheet, start naming some games off. Could we get something third party? Could we buy a studio? Something to like fill the void in this, 18 months or 16 months we have. They brought up Baldur's Gate 3. And at the time, Baldur's Gate 3 was linked to Google Stadia, that cloud-based thing that Google was working on. And Phil Spencer, in his thing, said, no, I don't want to get a second-rate Google Stadia game. And a lot of people are like, wow, how would you say that about Larian? And the developers of Larian defended him. They go, hey, man, we didn't even know we had it in us. Like, because they were only offering like $5 million to buy Larian out and be like, hey, And so there was a lot of talk about, so Larian's like a 2-bit Google, Stadia studio. It's like, yeah, I just, all that stuff. But it's interesting to see, they're like, hey, could we buy, like, there was a new Star Wars game coming out. Could we just buy that to have it on Game Pass day one? And like the figures, because they're just having to crunch the numbers. So his team was like, I think for like $100 million, we could get this on Game Pass day one. And then Baldur's Gate 3 was like maybe $5 million or something. And you're like, oh, that seems so low. Like, damn, like we had a contender. Well, Avin, thanks for talking with me. While we go through this again, we'll probably have to meet when the deal actually closes with Activision Blizzard so we can be done with it. Our saga could be done, and we won't ever have to talk about it again.
Yeah, I think my first guest appearance on Gaming with Grief was about Activision Blizzard.
Yeah, and now you're like...
Maybe not, but I think it was.
And there's this one, and I think we've done 2 more, so that'll be, I think, the 4th episode, because one was just about Bobby Kotick, and one was... whatever. It's going to be over, Avin. It's going to be over. I know, I was thinking... All right, well, I'll talk to everybody next week.